being here. Um, we are going to take a peek at Malcolm Gladwell's video, a presentation that he did with Google. And he is a New York Times bestselling author and journalist and a very smart man who knows a lot of things. And this video presentation of his should kind of make you rethink a little bit about college selectivity and prestige and really what it means to choose a school that fits you best. So since that is really our goal at Strive to Learn, is making sure that our students are applying to colleges that fit them the best, that we just want to educate you as much as we can on the big wide world of colleges. And I guess to not have a spoiler, but rank is not everything. So I'm going to share my screen and start this video for you. And we will discuss a little bit afterwards.
It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm acutely conscious of the fact, as I listened both to our previous speaker and also the ones before, that everyone has been speaking about very consequential and high-minded things this morning, and I'm not going to do that at all. In fact, I intend to give what I'm sure will be the most solipsistic talk ever at a Google Zeitgeist. I simply want to talk about why on earth I decided to say yes and come here. Here's the situation. I'm a writer. Part of what I do to make my living is I go and give speeches at conferences like this, and I get paid, right, as one would. And it's that money that I use to make my living. So how much is Google paying me for this? Zero. It's a company with, what, $50 billion in the bank, and they don't have a dime for poor little old Malcolm. Now, we could talk at length about what this says about Google, but that's not what interests me. What interests me is what that says about me. Why on earth would I say yes under such a circumstance? Why, I'm busy. My time is really valuable. Why did I fly all the way out here across the country to give away my intellectual property for free? In fact, it wasn't even free. I had to print out my speech this morning in the Business Center, and this is the bill. It cost me $9.87. It's costing me to be here. Now, you can say that I came here because there's all kinds of interesting people here, which is true, but I don't mean to cast any aspersions on any of you, but my life is lousy with interesting people. I got more interesting people than I know to. So you can say, well, maybe I should have come here. I should come here because I can make contacts that will help me, in the business world. I'm not in the business world. I don't need to meet a VC. I work out of my apartment. If I want to renovate my kitchen, I'll just go to the bank for a loan. It doesn't make any sense, in other words, for me to be here. So why did I say yes? Well, the answer is that this conference is run by Google, one of the most prestigious and successful companies in the world. I would not have agreed to speak for free at a Yahoo conference, would I, right? So, in other words, my decision to do something that is not in my best interest was caused by my association with an elite institution. And this is what I want to talk about today. It's an argument that I make in my new book, David and Goliath, which, in further proof of how baffling my decision was to come here, is not available for sale at this conference. I like to call this problem elite institution cognitive disorder, or Eicd. And it's simply that elite institutions screw us up in all kinds of ways that we're not always conscious of. And since the theme of this morning's session is Imagine a Better World, I want to try and imagine what the world would look like if we freed ourselves of the scourge of Eicd. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of Eicd in action. But let me start with the very thorny question of science and math education in this country, STEM as we call it. We have a problem in turning out enough science and math graduates, right, in this country. And it's not for lack of interest, by the way, among high school seniors. Lots and lots and lots of high school seniors want to get science and math degrees, but approximately half of them drop out by the end of their second year. So we have a persistence problem in science and math education in this country. So the question is why? Why do so many kids drop out? Well, the obvious answer is that science and math are really hard, and you need to have a certain level of cognitive ability to master those subjects, and we don't have enough smart kids, right? So, if that's true, if science and math education is a function of, we should be able to see in the statistics that persistence is a function of your cognitive ability. Right? So let's take a look. By the way, this is the first time in my life I've ever used PowerPoint. This is like a fantastic moment for me. I feel like I've finally joined the 20th century. It's really kind of amazing. Oh, wow. Okay, so I've just chosen Hartwick College as a proxy for American colleges for totally random reasons. Hartwick is a small liberal arts college in upstate New York, and what we have here is a distribution of math SAT scores among the people who are intending to major in science and math. And what you can see is that there is quite a wide range of native math ability among the kids entering the freshman STEM programs at Hartwick, right? So what do we see when we look at who ends up graduating with a STEM degree? What we see is that at Hartwick College, the kids in the top third, with the top third SAT scores, end up getting well over half of the STEM degrees, and the kids with the bottom scores end up getting very few of the STEM degrees. Those kids over there are dropping out like flies. Right? This would seem to suggest that our original hypothesis that persistence is a function of cognitive ability is true. And we can also go further. We can say if this hypothesis is true, as we go to more and more selective institutions, we should see a very different pattern of persistence. We should see less kids dropping out because the kids are all smarter. Right? So let's go to Harvard. These numbers are a few years old, but at Harvard, you can see that the bottom third of math SAT scores among kids doing science and math are equal to the top third at Hartwick. The dumb students at Harvard are as smart as the smart students at Hartwick. So you'd think everybody at Harvard should be getting a math and science degree, right? Why would they drop out? Everyone's so smart. What do we see? Oh, dear. What we see is the exact same pattern at Harvard that we saw at Hartwick. The top kids are getting all the degrees. The kids at the bottom aren't getting any degree. They're dropping out like flies, right? Even though these kids are brilliant, right? So what's happening? Well, clearly what we're seeing here is that persistence in science and math is not simply a function of your cognitive ability. It's a function of your relative standing in your class. It's a function of your class rank, right? Those kids who are really, really brilliant don't get their math degree not as a function of their IQ, but as a function of where they are in their class. And by the way, if you look at any college you want, you will always see, regardless of the level of cognitive ability among the students, you will always see the same pattern. The kids who get the science and math degrees are the ones in the top of their class, and the kids in the bottom of their class never do. Look over that bottom third, the bottom third chart over there. So the name given for this phenomenon among psychologists is relative deprivation theory. And it describes this exceedingly robust phenomenon, which says that as human beings, we do not form our self-assessments based on our standing in the world. We form our self-assessments based on our standing in our immediate circle, on those in the same boat as ourselves. Right? So a classic example of relative deprivation theory is which countries have the highest suicide rates? Happy countries or unhappy countries? And the answer is happy countries, right? If you're morbidly depressed in a country where everyone else is really unhappy, you don't feel that unhappy, right? You're not comparing yourself to the universe, the whole universe of people out there. No, you're comparing yourself to your neighbors and the kids at school, and they're unhappy too, so you're sort of fine. But if you're morbidly depressed in a country where everyone is jumping up and down for joy, you are really depressed, right? That is a very, very, very profoundly serious place to be. And so as a result, you get that sad outcome more often. So what's happening at Harvard then is the kid in the bottom third of his class at Harvard does not say, rationally, I am in the 99.99th percentile of all students in the world when it comes to native math ability, even though that's true. What that kid says is, that kid over there, Johnny over there, is getting all the answers right, and I'm not. I feel like I'm really stupid, and I can't handle math, so I'm going to drop out, get a fine arts degree, move to Brooklyn, work, make $15,000 a year, and break my parents' heart, right? So what is the implication of this? The implication of this is that if you want to get a science and math degree, don't go to Harvard, right? In fact, we can run the numbers on this. Mitchell Chang at UCLA recently did the numbers, and he says, as a rule of thumb, your odds of graduating, persisting, successfully getting a science and math degree fall by 2 percentage points for every 10-point increase in the average SAT score of your peers. So if you're a kid and you have a choice between if you and University of Maryland is your safety, University of Maryland has 150, as on average, SAT scores are 150 points lower at Maryland. That means your chance of graduating with a STEM degree from Maryland is 30% higher than it would be at Harvard, right? Now, so if you choose to go to Harvard and not Maryland, you are taking an enormous gamble. You're essentially saying, this STEM degree, by the way, the most valuable commodity any college graduate can have in today's economy, I am going to take a 30% gamble in my chances of getting that degree just so I can put Harvard on my resume. Is that worth it? I don't think so, right? But how many kids, given a choice between Harvard and Maryland, choose Maryland? Not that many. Why? Eicd. Now, why does Eicd persist if it's so plainly irrational? Well, I think it's because as human beings, we dramatically underestimate the cost of being at the bottom of a hierarchy. Right? And now let me give you another really remarkable example of this. This is from a paper that just came out from a guy named two economists, John Conley and Ali Under, rather. They looked at graduates of PhD programs, economics PhD programs at American universities. And what they were interested in was, what is the publication record of these graduates in the 6 years after they took an academic position? So as you know, the principal way by which we evaluate economists is how often and how well do they publish. So what these guys did is they did a little algorithm, took the top economics journals and weighted them according to their level of prestige, and came up with a number of how many your sort of score in the 6 years after graduation. So we get this chart here. And what you can see, first of all, look at the 99th percentile. So what this says is the kids who are in the 99th percentile of their PhD program at Harvard, MIT, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Stanford, Chicago. The 99th percentile, that's what they publish. The Harvard students publish 4.31 journal articles in their first 6 years after graduation. That's amazing, right? Astounding number. Same with MIT, 4.73, all the way down the list. What we see here is that the best students at the very best schools are extraordinary. And that comes as no surprise. You just saw Larry Summers here. I don't know where he went. Larry Summers, that's Larry Summers, right? Brilliant, genius. We knew that. Let's look at the 85th percentile. Now, the 85th percentile at these schools, these are schools that might take 24 PhD students every year. So if you're in the 85th percentile in the MIT economics program, you're the 5th or 6th best student in your class. That's really smart, okay? The 85th percent student at MIT, or at Harvard, let's do Harvard, publishes basically one paper in their first 6 years versus 4.31 in the top student. So the gap between 1 and 5 is enormous, right? It's 5x. Now let's go down to the 55th percentile at Harvard. So the 55th percentile at Harvard is the, let's say, the 12th best person at the greatest economics program in the world. They could arguably say they are one of the 20 top PhD economics students in the world, right? Look at their publication rate, 0.07. Basically, they're not publishing at all. By any standard by which we judge academic economists, these people are complete failures, right? Now, I've picked lousy schools. And I've started with Toronto, which is where I went to school. So this is a little masochistic moment where I basically confess to how paltry my academic pedigree is. I've also picked BU, and then I've also picked non-top 30 is simply all the schools that are so terrible I can't bring myself to name them. So we've aggregated them all. So these are schools that if your child, anyone in this room, if your child said, yeah, we're going to go to one of these schools, you would weep. Okay? What do we see here? What we see here is that the 99th percentile at these lousy schools publish more than everyone at the top schools except for the 99th percentile. Right? Do you see that? Look at Toronto, 3.13. The only people who publish more than the top student at Toronto are the top students at those top 7 schools. The top student at Boston is publishing 3 times more than the 80th percentile student at Harvard. Right? What does this tell us? Well, it tells us that, before I get there, the guys who did this study, having done this study, were so stunned at what they were seeing, that they end their article with this whole thing about what on earth is going on with Harvard. Right? Here's a school which is collecting the most brilliant, the most accomplished, probably the best looking graduate students in economics imaginable. I can't imagine the bar is that high, but nonetheless, it presumably is a selection criteria. They gather them all together, and yet everyone except for the very, very best students is basically a flop. And they say, I'm quoting them, why is it that the majority of these successful applicants who were winners and did all the right things up to the time they applied to graduate school became so unimpressive after they are trained? Are we, in this moment of genuine distress on the part of these two economists, are we failing the students or are they failing us? Right? No one's failing anyone. What you're just seeing is relative deprivation in action, right? When it comes to confidence and motivation and self-efficacy, the things that really matter when it comes to making your way in the world, relative position matters more than absolute position, right? The 80th percentile student at Harvard looks at those kids who are smarter than him and says, I can't do it. The number 1 student at Missouri says, wow, I am Lord of the Manor. I'm going to go out and conquer the world, right? So what does it mean? Well, what it means, first of all, when it comes to hiring, it means you should hire on the basis of class rank. And you should be completely indifferent to the institution attended by the applicant. In fact, we should have a don't ask, don't tell policy for the name of your undergraduate institution. It's hurting us to know that. Doesn't help us. And when you hear some institution, some fabulous Wall Street investment bank, some university say, we only hire from the top schools, you should say, you moron. That's the word. That's what that's not the previous slide. I don't know how to go backwards on slides. So, no, you don't want to hire from only the best. Hire from the top students from any school under the sun. Right? And it also means that when it comes, if you have kids going to college, when it comes to choosing your undergraduate institution, you should never go to the best institution you get into. Never. Go to your second or your third choice. Go to the place where you're guaranteed to be in the top part of your class. Right? So why don't we do that? well, why did I come here when it was profoundly in my self-interest not to, right? Because when we have an opportunity to join elite institutions, we are so enormously flattered and pleased with ourselves that we do things that are irrational. Thank you.
I'll try it on my phone.
Oh, there you go. That I can hear.
That's why I show up twice, because I had I pulled it up on my iPad, but I wasn't able to get you speaking, so I pulled it up on my phone. I can get your voice on my phone.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
But all I said was it's an interesting theory. I've never heard it before.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've never really given it thought, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Malcolm Gladwell?
I am not.
Okay. He's written some New York Times best-selling books. The Tipping Point is the first one that I read. Maybe you've heard of that.
Oh, I have heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Outliers is a more recent one. Anyway, he's a smart guy and
Yeah.
and does a lot of good research. So I watched this video in one of my classes when I was training to become a college counselor, and it definitely was a little bit of a paradigm shift for me and thinking about rankings and prestige and numbers. And we have 3,000 colleges in our country, more than that, and so there's got to be great schools out there that fit everybody, and that's our main mission anyway. So yeah, just wanted to provide some food for thought.
Yeah. I'm on my second child through Strive to Learn,
Mhm.
and it's a very different experience versus my first.
Okay.
My first is currently at SMU.
Okay.
She's my she knew we went over to Texas. We're obviously from California. Went over to Texas, looked at Baylor, and she liked it, but there's not a whole lot in terms of the town there.
Sure.
And so we went over to SMU, and 1 foot on, she's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just her vibe. And versus my junior in high school right now,
Mhm.
it's and my older one is very academic, and my younger one is also, I pulled up her grades today, and I was very happy to see what was it, 4.67, I think.
All right.
So but she's so different. She's not looking at it purely as for academics.
Yeah.
She's looking at it, she needs more of a fit,
Right.
a personality fit,
Okay.
than the academics. So this ranking is not going to be as important to her.
For her.
She wants to feel comfortable there.
Sure.
That's more what's important to her.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure, I think your daughter's working with Melinda. I'm sure she'll steer her in the right direction, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Great. And Kathy, any thoughts from you? I think that are you Stella's mom? I don't know if she's going to be able to answer this, but so, okay, well, great. Thank you all for being here. I was just going to share.
He's just so cool. I just loved him.
Yeah, he's a cool guy for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad you found that and shared that with us. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I recommend his books too, that are not related to colleges per se, but really interesting stuff. So
definitely. Yeah. I've never thought of it that way before. So that was really eye-opening. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. Good. Yep. And I think you both have juniors. So
Oh,
yeah, so they have a little bit of time still to go through this process. And
but at the same time, it's this I feel like is the time where I'm trying to dispel what I've been thinking all this time, you know, since she was born, basically, about what I'm just trying to kind of rethink the process because, you know, like he was saying, we were all in college, or like Ed was saying before, like we were all in college, you know, in whatever decade we were in college, and things were just so different then. And I'm kind of hanging on to that process in my mind, and I need to let go of that. And then even just watching the video that you just presented, I mean, that these are just all notions that I haven't really entertained. So it's super helpful for me.
Right. Good. Well, I'll keep that in mind. And definitely as I'm working with Stella, we'll send you guys some more information or interesting things that you might want to see. So, or read.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks
for
a
sure.
lot.
For sure. Great.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you both. I hope you are going to join a couple of our other sessions if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm jumping on with Melinda next. And I'm really, I don't know let's see, there's one I'm really interested in, the one that Amanda and Josephine are doing at 8:20.
Great.
The one on how and when to visit colleges, because I've just decided recently that I'm probably going to do the opposite of what I did with my first one.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
I went to like 15 different colleges, you know, checked them all out, and then applied, and then revisited the ones that she thought she might go to. Whereas I'm thinking with my younger one now, is look at the virtuals, apply, and then what she gets in to will go see them.
Yeah.
You know, just so maybe she can relate a little more, since she's, you know, more touchy-feely, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
I think that might be a good way to go. So it'll be interesting to see what they say at 8:20 here.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be on the next one with you then. I'm gonna run Melinda's session. Well, she has a video, but I'll moderate afterwards. So, but yeah, we're happy to talk a little bit more about all of that. And I'm sure you'll learn a lot about visiting colleges too with Josephine. So, all right. Well, thank you both for being here. And if you want to take our survey at some point in the night, we'll have this up at the end of all of our sessions, but you can just scan the QR code. And that's always helpful for us to have that feedback. So, so yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, bye-bye.